Hello, everyone, and welcome to the digital launch of the sixth Mondi Group e-commerce trend report. I'm Nedim Nisic, representing Mondi Group's e-commerce team, and thank you for joining us today. Before we dive in, I would like to cover three main points. First one, the significance of the report. This report is a key annual initiative showcasing Mondi's commitment to understanding not only packaging, but the broader aspect of e-commerce trends, consumer behavior, and expectations. This allows us to create a packaging that is sustainable, innovative, and market-driven. Number two, our collaboration with RetailX. For the third consecutive year, we have partnered with RetailX on this project, and their expertise in research and data analysis adds tremendous value. The consistency in their work over years has been important, and today their team will cover the main insights of the report. And number three, the ongoing focus on sustainability. Sustainability remains a major driver in e-commerce packaging, and this report reinforces the importance of sustainable material and sustainable packaging solutions to online shoppers, as well as for building the brand loyalty. At the end of today's session, we will have a dedicated Q&A where we will answer your questions. Please keep them focused on the findings of this report. And with this said, I would like to hand over to Ian Jindal and Martin Shaw from RetailX, who will take us through the main findings and main insights.
Great. Thank you so much, Nedim. Welcome, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. And I particularly want to say how much we've enjoyed working with Mondi on this report for the last few years, mainly because it's been such an open brief. So rather than approaching this with some wished for answers to desired questions, we've had a free hand to look across the customer's view and what they think about the broad topic of packaging. And as we are in a digital age, of course, packaging remains the most consistent touch point that a consumer has having made an online purchase. So before we dive in, I'll introduce myself. I'm Ian Jindal. I'm the founder of RetailX, and RetailX is a research business where we focus on performance. So we track around 100,000 direct-to-consumer sites, and for the largest 11,500 of those, we assess them on about 300 performance metrics, and from that calculate the top performing brands, retailers and marketplaces in Europe with the top 1,000, the UK with the top 500, and of course the global elite. In addition, we do market surveys. So these are econometric assessments of the market, along with a deep dive into consumer sentiment. And that brings us along to our consumer research activities, where we check around 40,000 consumers a year, assessing them on their attitude, approaches and behaviours to commerce and D2C activities. And within this, we have then been working with Mondi to ask some additional specific questions. So you, of course, have access to the report. The charts in there are available to you. if you want additional charts or different slices or other cuts of the data, do just ask Julia and we'll be pleased to make those available to you. And just as a quick point of information, all of our data is available interactively, and we have a special program for journalists. So if you want to have background, trend, performance data on European retailers, do just contact us and I'll get you signed up to our free of charge journalist program. So that's the introduction. We're going to cover a few points today, but let me just ask Martin, our research director, just to introduce himself. And as I leave the agenda up for you to just check over, Martin, welcome to the live cast.
Thank you, Ian. So I'm Martin Shaw, Research Director at RetailX. So my team and I put together various surveys and survey people across Europe, across the world. And we also do the performance benchmarking research of retailers that Ian alluded to as well.
Great. Well, look, welcome, Martin. So we're going to talk about the methodology in a second. I'm going to remind everybody of the report overview and then pick out the three, I think, key points that we've learned this year around protection, the unboxing experience, and of course, sustainability. As we're going through, please do put any questions into the system and I'll get a note as we go along. We take a question at the end, but if I'm talking too quickly or you don't understand the point or want more clarification, do just put it in and someone will jump out and ask us, because I don't want you to wait until the end for that. So Martin, tell us a little bit about the methodology and how this survey has fitted in with the activities of the research team.
Certainly. So our surveys, just to get the boring bit out of the way, we've got sort of the number of respondents we've got there. It's roughly 50-50 in terms of gender split. And we use the random device engagement methodology to ensure a representative sample of consumers is reached. And this approach is a big improvement over, say, traditional methods where maybe use telephone surveys. Those have much diminished success these days. They're not consistent with the changing patterns of device usage. So the RDE methodology that we use has been shown to, for example, more accurately forecast election results over the past few years than telephone surveys. So it's a fairly solid methodology to be using. Each device has a unique identifier, which means only one completion per that phone. And our approach leverages lots of in-app users that are already there in popular third-party apps, offering a direct line to very diverse user demographics. And in these 6 markets, we were able to get a very good representation. So that's the methodology out of the way.
And we added some new questions in this year as well, which we have on the left, which are around the packaging, but also I noticed the one about trust in retailer claims.
Yes, so we previously asked questions about sustainability, though that's expanded a lot this year. And one area we were looking at is not just do they want retailers to be sustainable, but what sorts of things can retailers do, or what sort, and particularly with a focus on packaging, what sorts of commitments are trustworthy from the consumer's point of view.
And of course, this is against a broad trend in marketing around greenwashing and pushes in various markets to ensure that claims of sustainability are based in fact. So I think the consumer is getting more sensitive. They want the transparency, but as we'll see later, only 50% were believing it. And before we dive into the results, it is worth saying that there are continued trajectories without any massive jumps. So, for example, 80% this year thought that sustainability was very important or important. Last year was 76. So the trend's continuing, but they're not enormous leaps. For example, online shopping is now endemic. It's 71% shopping regularly versus a few percentage points lower last year. But I think what we're seeing is a maturing, sophisticated consumer base with trends reinforced rather than massive new jumps. Is that how you saw the year-on-year changes?
Absolutely, yeah. So, for example, you see in terms of the prioritization of sustainable packaging, this year it's 80% of respondents versus 76% last year.
Excellent. Well, let's look at the results then. So first off, in case you have to leave in 3 minutes, this is the summary kindly provided in the report anyway. Whereas Martin was saying, we're seeing 8 in 10, 80% looking for sustainable packaging. And this is a combination, remember, of the consumer wanting us to behave in the right way as good corporate citizens. It's also about waste management because of the increased focus on recycling during waste collection at home. And there's also this notion in the customer's mind that if your packaging is wasteful, that means that you must be wasteful as a company, which means that they must be paying an unnecessary premium to cover your wastefulness. So there's a mix, if you like, of environmental, cost, and brand considerations all coming together. We're also seeing that the consumer enjoys a quality unboxing experience. Now, this doesn't mean excessively luxurious or wasteful packaging, but there seems to be a real enjoyment of the perfect packaging for the product. So, for example, it might be something that protects the product incredibly well in a minimal way, and people think, oh, that's a very clever use of packaging. Or, for example, the new suspension packaging where the cardboard and the plastic pull against maybe an electronic item to hold it in suspension. Very elegant, minimal waste. The customer really likes it. So again, if you can balance your brand, creativity, fitness for purpose, along with good design, then the consumer notices that. And we're seeing nearly 60% saying that they noticed and like it. One of the key areas in the report is around minimizing waste, and they want the companies providing their products to be very clear that the waste has been done. And part of this is to reinforce that they themselves have made a good choice. So by making the customer feel happy rather than feeling that this is all contributing to the end of the planet, they feel better, and happy customers obviously come back. But we have to be very careful not to just use generic claims. And so half of the consumers are saying we're not sure that we trust the packaging claims. And so this means that things like approved schemes, clear labeling, avoiding jargon, avoiding empty words, where we can be very specific, transparent, and verifiable, will lead to a greater acceptance. And then new for this year, we're seeing that where the brand gets it right, where it is recyclable, reusable, appropriately sized, sustainable, and clever, 9 out of 10 consumers think, yeah, great company to deal with. And I think where this is important is that with the growth of marketplaces, consumers may not often know where the package is coming from. They may not have visited the store. And so this becomes your main touch point with the brand and the biggest way of encouraging repeat customers. And lastly, they're looking towards parcels being delivered in biodegradable, recyclable packaging in the next 5 years. I actually think that will be an accelerated activity just because as the retailers and brands are making the efforts, so municipal and local authorities across Europe are also taking steps to harmonise the post-consumer waste collection, recycling, management, and legislation around that. So overall, if you had to leave right now, that is the report. But for those of you who want to know more, we will now just dive into a couple of them. I just want to note that even though the report is beautifully designed and you're welcome to take them, we wanted to give all of the facts in one place. So here are all the quotable points, all of the facts with links to the charts. So you're very welcome to grab these. Again, the charts are available for your reuse. If you need anything else, do let us know. So protection. Now, this is an interesting one for us because the change in packaging expectations have been very significant, and the trends have moved from, if you think about early e-commerce, the only things we used to send were things you could stuff in a bag or things you didn't mind breaking. Whereas as e-commerce and delivery of online products has increased, so too the range of materials. So whether it's wine, eggs, even that isn't a joke, whether it's lightweight, expensive clothing, electronic items, bottled goods, so many products now are getting not only highly protective product packaging, but also extremely specific to the product type. And the consumer now identifies the twin requirements. It is protective, but also suitable for the product. So it has to be the right protectiveness for the right product. Those two are now getting over 50% of people saying it's very important, and around 90% saying that it's important or very important. We're also seeing the importance of reseal for return shipment. And again, this is not a random request coming from the customer. This reflects the business operations of direct sellers. So more and more goods now are seen not just as a one-off to customer X, goodbye, but part of an ongoing discussion with the customer. So whether it is subscription products, repeat purchases, order on a regular basis, recognizing perhaps that you might have ordered 3 in order to get sizing, and we want to get the other 2 products back quickly. This is now part of the warp, the weft of e-commerce as we move away from just buy it, send it, forget about it, to interactive transactions going over a number of years. If the customer can't use it for return, they are very keen that the recyclability is noted on the package. And this is important. Innovative materials. So as we see, for example, some of the very interesting padded cardboard bags, if it's the first time you get one, you may think, oh, is there a plastic film in there? Do I have to recycle it in my household recycling? Take it to a recycling bank with other products? So the more clearly we can label what the packaging is and how it's recyclable, the less stress we give our customer in the end. Now, linked to protection is the point I made earlier about unboxing. And what we've seen is that unboxing has gone from Gen Z people making a fuss online as part of their haul videos, their unboxing videos, to simply part of the enjoyment of a purchase. Now, we're seeing now that the majority of people think that the unboxing experience is important towards repeat purchasing. It's an extra bit of fun, an extra bit of satisfaction. It is something that trends more towards Gen Z. But I think that's also because the older segments are more used to stores and therefore see this as something they'd have gotten after a store, whereas for Gen Z, it's increasingly the main part of their interaction. And what is it that makes unpacking great? So I mentioned earlier on that getting a package in just the perfect box is something that consumers like. It's as if they share the enjoyment of the engineering capability with you. Easy to open. Again, we see this time and again. This isn't constrained to older people who maybe don't have dexterity. It's a common occurrence that sometimes, if it's not put together well and easy to open, it hasn't been well designed. And people don't want to open a wonderful recyclable outer carton just to find it stuffed full of non-recyclable internal packaging. And one thing, I don't know, Martin, if this struck you as interesting, but I was taken by the importance of pretty packaging. And again, we see this in a world of everything's becoming brown. And we know that retailers and brands sometimes don't want to advertise that there's a high value product inside the outer carton, but yet there does seem to be an enjoyment of prettiness,
Absolutely.
especially if that's on brand.
Yeah, and the main thing that stuck out with this particular question was looking at the generational distinction that you see. So on the bottom right there of the slide, you can see Gen Z 53% importance of pretty packaging compared to 7% for boomers. So that's one of the biggest generational differences that we see across the whole survey.
So maybe we'll see the CRM integrating with packaging to select if consumer is under a certain age, send them the pretty package instead of the brown carton. And this is very important where packaging is seen as a branding tool, despite us misspelling branding there. So where the customer is seeing that it's appropriate and it's a great experience, 90% of them are feeling that it makes a big difference and the brand is seen more positively. And my favorite one is the one on the right, which is it's unique in some way. And I think, I don't know, Martin, whether this is just me being weird, but when something arrives in an amazing package, we'll often take a photo of that and share it on the family WhatsApp. My children are all at university, all studying geography, so they're very interested in sustainability and operations. So when you get some packaging that is super clever and really amazing, we'll often keep it. So maybe I've overshared there, but I definitely think that with 52% now agreeing with me that I can admit this in public. I mentioned my kids in passing. I think this is useful as well because 4 generations, maybe beyond the boomers and the Gen X, we're seeing now that sustainability is not a negotiable point. You no longer get bonus points for being sustainable because we expect that. Rather, you get negative points for not being sustainable. And I think where we see the challenge is that even though the consumer is now telling us how important sustainability is, they're also saying to us that they don't want to pay for it. So if you look on the top right, we're seeing that nearly 40% of consumers will not pay extra for good packaging. How do we understand this? Well, as we dive into it, what we realize is that the consumer is saying to us, look, if you're a serious, efficient, capable retailer, your packaging is something you should think about. It's not an extra. It's integrated with your brand. If you're efficient, effective, and thoughtful, then there's no waste. If there's no waste, you have the margin to pay for it. By the way, you're at scale, and also we've seen all of your competitors do it. So are you telling us that you're not capable? And so this is a challenge for credible larger retailers, is that they have to now be excellent when it comes to sustainability, because that's the minimum competitive expectation of their brand. So something to consider. One thing we do know is that the consumer doesn't get less demanding as time goes on. And this is why they're looking to see important messages on their packaging. They now want to see the words 100% recyclable. And what this is telling us is not we want the words, but we want you to solve this problem so that we can relax and not worry about it. And 76% are telling us that, but we also have to prove it by not just saying recyclable, tell us how, in which recycling chain should be. They're also increasingly saying we don't want to see virgin products being used. Please tell us as well this made from recycled materials. Ideally, that we can compost it or it's biodegradable. And if you look lower down where we see around responsible sourcing, low carbon, etc., then I don't predict too much, but if I had to predict, I think we'd see these numbers increasing next year. Fundamentally, the new standard is recyclable, post-consumer recycled if possible, and biodegradable. It's where the consumer expectation is going. And increasingly, if we don't fall in with that, we'll be seen as an outlier. But then we ask the customer, you say you want this, but what have you noticed? Do you give credit for things you see? And what the consumer is telling us is they've noticed their retailers and brands using more recycled material, lowering the packaging, and they're also appreciating consolidated packaging that works and the switch to biodegradable. So this is one example we don't see very often of the consumer asking in a demanding way, but then also saying we've seen that there are improvements and we're grateful for that. And I think that that's an important shift that we should be pleased to see, because it recognises our work. Diving further into that, we can see that the 3 sustainability messages that consumers want to see: recyclable, made from recycled materials and biodegradable. And again, there's a spread here where the boomers, who remember are the ones who don't want to pay extra, who aren't interested in unboxing. These are the hardest ones to impress. They're also the ones who are saying, come on, straight down the line, we want to see these things are being done. So an interesting flip here between the talking, the demands, and the ones who are appreciating it. An interesting generational flip there. It is worth us asking what happens in real life despite what the customer says. And here we dived into recycling behavior. And what we can see is that the majority of the packaging, or nearly the majority, around half, 48%, goes into a recycling bin. And so that's pretty positive, especially when 38% of it gets stored for reuse. Now, again, this is an opportunity for retailers and brands to have their brand live longer with a customer, because I've enjoyed the product, I'm still enjoying it. Here's the packaging that I'll reuse. I love that company. I must go and shop with them again. So I think it is worth looking at the life that your packaging has, but it has to be appropriate. So for regular, low value, could have to be easy recyclable, so they can go into the recycling bin and be used. And again, diving into this by behavior, what we're seeing again is that the boomers are working hard on their recycling, not so much the Gen Z, but I would say that there is this is an attitudinal memory survey, so we haven't been able to check this against their actual bins, but it does show the importance that each generation places and how they see themselves as recyclers. So, turning to the future, 70% expect that they will be getting all of their parcels in biodegradable and or recyclable package. As I said, I think that 5 years is probably too long, but 5 weeks is probably too short. So it's something that is gathering pace. We the point about without packaging, the 10%, is for without additional packaging. So this is where the brands and manufacturers make the product in dispatchable outer packaging, and it doesn't need to be wrapped again. So we are seeing, and this is something we covered in last year's report, about the growth of own packaging for the consumer, and I think this is now getting consumer buy-in. We have got in the report, for all of the things I've covered, a split not only by generation but by the countries specified. I haven't gone through those in this presentation just for speed, but I thought it was worth finishing off with a country split, just because this is one of the areas where we are seeing general conformity across all of the countries. But I did want to pull out Turkey in particular, just to show how outside of the recycled packaging expectation, their consumer expectation far outstrips the expectations elsewhere. And I think this combination of having such a young, digitally savvy and sophisticated consumer base means that they're moving at a faster pace in terms of their demands than maybe the rest of Europe. So do enjoy the country slices on that. And I would just leave us maybe with one point, which is that we've started seeing consumers telling us that they'd quite like a refund for any returned packaging and also for using packetless. So I think this is a wonderful moment where all of a sudden the consumer in her mind has stopped thinking about packaging as waste and has started to think about packaging as an asset. So it's a brand asset, it's quality packaging that they've enjoyed. Oh, hang on, if I'm sending the packaging back, this is valuable, shouldn't I get some money for it? And so for me, this is a real moment where the packaging industry, as part of the brand and commerce experience, has shifted from overhead to value proposition. And this is something we're going to be tracking a lot in the future. So that was a rapid run through. Martin, before we open for questions, is there anything I've forgotten in that, or any key point that you particularly like that we should make just as we swap over to questions?
Nothing I think you missed, because it was a quick run through. I might just find something. I wanted to talk about there's a 12% increase in consumers expecting almost all parcels to be delivered in biodegradable or compostable packaging. 12% is quite a lot year on year. So this is just to emphasize, although we are talking about small increments, if you had an inflation rate of 12% over 1 year period, you would say you're in an alarming time. So actually, it's quite a rapid clip in a lot of these questions.
Great, thank you. Well, look, if we have any questions, I'd be very happy to take them now. So I'm just checking the chat and open to questions.
So Ian, we thank you very much, Ian and Martin, for covering the insights. As always, very interesting, informative, and educational. And we do have a couple of questions. So the first one is how far are we in the process of switching from plastic to paper packaging? And perhaps I can take this one. Here, let's say that the switch from plastic to paper started in the e-commerce packaging started 4 or 5 years ago when some of the largest companies decided to go from plastic to paper. And these are the well-known companies such as Zalando, H&M, Amazon, Inditex, and etc. And then this process was taking shape in a 2-3 years. And this was an important step forward because all of these companies that I mentioned are trendsetters. So what they do, eventually the rest of the market follows. However, then what happened here is that along the way we came into these turbulent economic conditions, where all of a sudden there is a problem with adding additional cost that is related to switching from plastic to paper. And then we are finding ourselves in an interesting situation where, as you showed in your report, consumers are demanding that the packaging is sustainable. Consumers are seeing this as a non-negotiable item, and it does impact brand loyalty and where consumers are shopping. So there is a set of companies, and I would say that it's still 30-40% of the market that is using the plastic as their packaging. They're finding themselves in a really tricky situation because consumers are demanding one thing, and there we have this economic situation on the other one. However, I think that this, as soon as we approach a little bit better times, that this cycle will finish, and that we will, at least in Europe, in the coming years, completely switch to paper-based packaging.
I think, Nedim, it's worth also saying that if customers' concern is around protection, and so if you're sending something, we've been trained for many years to think, oh, if it comes in a plastic bag, it must be waterproof and safe. And so as the consumer experiences more and more effective, innovative paper packaging, and I think, oh, that's amazing, the desire and the drive for plastic will change. So I think there is an education that's happening as well, where the better the experience is of really good paper, then the customer will accept or even demand that. So I think we are seeing a change there in the consumer's perception.
Absolutely. The second question is for RetailX, and it says, based on the lack of trust in sustainability claims from retailers, what could they do better? And should packaging play a role in transporting their message within its design, but also as a channel for communication?
So the answer to the second part is yes, because design and messaging, it's all about communication. I think where it gets difficult is who owns the messaging on the packaging. So if you buy bulk packaging, stick it in, and it just says, better for the planet, we endeavour to have a happy, healthy future. Is that a claim? So I think what people want to see are factual statements that they can reference. So an example might be if it had the forest sustainability stamp with a QR code that says, find out more about the programme. If it says this reduces carbon output by 37%, and we are saving 4,000 trees for every package, given I think the first thing is be specific and traceable in your claims. The second thing is that when you're selling across Europe, the local legislation and understanding is very, very different. We see this in the UK, for example, where every local authority at a district level has a different requirement for recycling. So in some cases, you can put paper and card together. It has to be clean, it has to be folded. It's only collected every Tuesday. So there's a move afoot in the UK, and I think as well in France, to say we have a national way of doing our recycling. So wherever you are, it's the same, it's predictable, because predictability leads to compliance and predictability leads to understanding. So I think the two things are make honest claims linked to things that people can understand. And secondly, label the packaging in a way that's relevant so the consumer knows how to recycle it. And that second part is more difficult than it should be, but the first part is straightforward.
Thank you, Ian. And the last question that we have the time for, since we are approaching the end of the event, how can brands balance the consumer interest in having a unique unboxing experience and product protection with the demand for recyclability?
Well, the simple answer is engineering and more engineering. So I'll give you an example. The other day, my iPhone, this is a replacement, the battery was broken. So they said, we'll send you another one. And once you've updated the new one, put the old one in the box and send it back. And so the box I received was about this thick. And it had a flat piece of cardboard with a recycled plastic that was folded over, and it acted like a little spring, holding the front of the phone in suspension. And it fitted through my letterbox. So I didn't have to wait in for a courier, etc., etc. I opened it in a second, I put my other phone back in, the broken one, closed it, took it and handed it in the store. And I was just saying it was genius. I wanted to be a paper engineer when I grew up. And so this is an example of it was minimal, it was thoughtful, it was protective, it was recyclable, and it was super efficient. So my view of the company instantly was these people are serious engineers who know what they're doing, who care for me, and are saving the planet. Now, who doesn't want that? So I think you can have an unboxing experience provided it's appropriate to the product, protective, and it shows a level of clever engineering and being just right for the product. Now, if you're a retailer that knows your product sector, then of course you can copy what other people are doing. You can go to the manufacturer and say, can I have those as well? If you're a generic retailer, again, you need to talk to your customer and to your suppliers to make sure that on a product basis, on an order basis, and on a delivery mechanism basis, you're picking the right packaging to make the best combination given the cost of that route to the customer, the margin, etc. So it's very simple to do if you have one product and you're doing it yourself. And it's very simple to do if you've got capable partners and the data to make those changes in real time. And for the rest of us, we have to pick our battles in between and work with the right people and get there. But always, always keep an eye on what the best competitors are doing. And frankly, where you see a good idea, grab it, work out who did it, and use it yourself.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ian and Martin, for putting this insightful report together. Thank you for presenting the findings today. And for all who joined us today, thank you very much once again for being with us.